Lake Day.
We did a survey of 44 people asking 3 questions. Is climate change anthropogenic? Do you think climate change is reversible? And will climate change eliminate the human race? Here's how the results broke down. For our first question, is climate change anthropogenic? We found that over 86% of people that we surveyed answered yes in terms of their beliefs. Just 13.6% answered no. For our second question, we asked, do you think climate change is reversible? So, over 38% answered no, and over 61% answered yes. Now, what does this mean? Well, in terms of the people who answered no, it can consist of both people who believe climate change is anthropogenic and people who don't believe it's anthropogenic. Because people who don't believe it's anthropogenic will feel that it's a natural process of the earth and therefore we can't reverse the effects of climate change. But people that also answered no that believe in anthropogenic climate change could think that it has gone too far to the point where we can reverse this. And finally, we asked our participants to tell us whether they believe that climate change will eliminate the human race. This was a very interesting divide to say because exactly a quarter of our participants answered no, whereas 3/4 answered yes.
I've got an experiment for you. Safety glasses on. By the end of this century, if emissions keep rising, the average temperature on Earth could go up another 4 to 8 degrees. What I'm saying is the planet's on fire. There are a lot of things we could do to put it out. Are any of them free? No, of course not. Nothing's free, you idiots.
How does climate change affect humans?
There are 4 really important ways that climate change affects humans. Number 1, as the planet warms up, we're going to redistribute rainfall, which is going to affect our water resources, and parts of North America may get a lot drier. Number 2, as the polar ice melts, sea levels are going to rise, and a lot of people and a lot of the world's major cities are right on coasts. That's going to impact them. Number 3, things like the species distributions, where we can grow food, they are going to change as the planet warms up, and so the range of which way you can grow corn and things will change. Number 4, the oceans are going to get more acidic as more CO2 dissolves in them. There are untold ramifications from that. There are the possibilities of radically altering the food web in the ocean, which can affect everything from the composition of the atmosphere to the ability of the oceans to provide food for us.
CO2 is overheating Greenland. Why is the ice still over 10,000 feet thick?
This is a really good question because it addresses the concept of thickness, which is extremely important to polar scientists. It's very easy to see that ice sheets and ice shelves and sea ice are changing in a sort of spatial sense, but what's even more important is that they are also thinning. It's very important for sea ice, but it's also important for the ice sheets. We know from satellite data and mosaics of that satellite data that our sea ice extent is decreasing in this sense, the sort of planar sense, and our ice sheets calve off, so we lose mass in that extent as well. But more importantly, we're getting thinning, both in the sea ice and in the ice sheets. And you can imagine that just a little bit of thinning spread over the scale of a continent amounts to a lot of water. So it's a great question, but I think we just have to fine-tune the questioner's expectations. If I were to walk outside on a really cold day, it would take a little bit of time for my core body temperature to drop, even though I'm feeling chilly on the outside. That's what's happening in Greenland as well. The Greenland ice sheet is really thick. It's going to take a lot of time to melt all of that ice. So the Greenland ice sheet is thinning, and it's thinning variably, but mostly along the coastlines. It's thinning beyond our expectations. And all of that thinning is taking place upstream of where the ice sheet is grounded. Therefore, that is going right into the ocean and contributing to mean sea level rise.
This is a picture of what San Francisco will supposedly look like if global average temperatures rise 4 degrees Celsius due to carbon emissions.
Climate change has been caused by humans, and 97% of scientists agree on that statement. Climate change is taking a toll on the Earth in many different ways, not all of them being visible either. is melting countries such as Greenland, raising the sea level, forcing coastline populations to eventually migrate, and also taking a heavy toll on humans internally. Humans alone release an average of 16.4 metric tons of CO2 each year, and that is triple the amount it was in 2013, meaning that since then, we have been doing a lot more activities that include releasing more carbon. So where did we go wrong? We went wrong when we started using more coal for electricity and other personal uses. There are many other ways that we disregarded to get electricity, such as solar power. Due to us missing that fact, our world and bodies are suffering. We can make that change by ending and slowing down the anthropogenic side of climate change and reduce our carbon footprint or our annual carbon use drastically. This graph shows the CO2 levels over the past few decades, and it shows a line of CO2 that we have never crossed since 1950 to now. Our CO2 levels are over 410 parts per million, and that is insanely high. And that is going to affect our global temperature rise and rapidly increase it, and overall this can lead to the end of humanity if we keep it up.
This graph shows the significant difference in the temperatures comparing from 1870 to recent times. The graph shows the unbelievably high temperatures compared to the past. This also corresponds to the increase of vehicles and other products that add to the atmosphere were created. Not only that, there were more energy needed to be produced, such as gasoline, to be used by products such as cars and trucks. Oil companies are accountable for much of the carbon emissions in the atmosphere. According to The Guardian, about 100 companies were accountable for about 71% of the global emissions in the past couple of years. Major oil companies such as Exxon and Shell and many other oil companies are responsible for the companies burning fossil fuels that put greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, causing the polar ice caps to melt, leading to higher sea levels, and therefore leading to global warming.
So, we've talked about the effects of climate change and the dire circumstances we find ourselves in. But luckily, there is hope. 61.4% of the people we surveyed said that they believe climate change is reversible, and truly there are steps we can take to mitigate the effects of climate change. Recycling and driving more fuel-efficient cars are examples of important change that could help, but that alone is not enough. Because climate change is a global problem, the solution will require both a global change as well as local efforts on the city and regional level. For example, the city could have public transportation running on clean energy, and the region could have legislation to support the use of renewable sources, such as hydroelectricity and solar panels. It's up to us what happens next.